Welcome to the SecureWorld Sessions. We're a cybersecurity podcast that is all about access.
Access granted.
Access to people and ideas that can impact your personal cybersecurity career and help you secure your organization. Hi, my name is Bruce Sussman. I am Director of Content at SecureWorld and also your podcast host. And in today's session, we're talking about frustrations in cybersecurity and what you can do about them. And no, this episode is not 12 hours long. Instead, we're focusing on just two areas of InfoSec frustration: third-party risk, for one, and for another, how hard it is to find cybersecurity talent. Plus, our premier podcast partner, Trend Micro, is sharing an update on its zero-day initiative, including submission tips if you want to try your hand at bug bounty research. Now, let's hit on cybersecurity frustration number one and meet our first guest. The amount of time you spend evaluating third-party risk may be over the top, but let's back up a second here. Have you ever had your boss drop something on you? Drop something on you that really should not be your responsibility? Well, that's how David Barton feels about having the security team spending so much time on third-party risk. Barton, who is managing director at UHY Advisors, says this is really someone else's job. Let's go to SecureWorld Atlanta now for the interview.
And I walked into your third-party risk management session, and there was a great amount of interaction going on and all kinds of discussion and everything else. Clearly, security professionals are passionate about this topic and I think frustrated by it. Would you?
I would agree with frustrated, yes. And I think that the reason they're frustrated is because they're being held responsible for it without really having accountability for it. It's one of those things we're seeing a whole lot of stuff being dumped into the security bucket these days because executives at companies expect the security team to handle everything associated with security. And even though third-party risk management by its nature, by its name, is not really security, it's risk management, it's still being lumped into the security bucket. So you've got security practitioners who know about technology and know about how to protect certain aspects of data and applications and so on, being held responsible for a topic that they're not equipped to deal with. It's a very complex issue, and as we saw from the Target breach, the first person that was fired after a third party led to a security breach at Target was not the head of risk management, it was the CISO.
So what is the answer here, or is there an answer or a solution to this problem?
Third-party risk management has to be a program. And as with any program, there are complexities involved that require a broad group of people from an organization to solve. It can't be solved by security. Because it's not a security problem. It's an organization-wide problem. And when you delve into the area of risk management, that involves a whole lot of people, not just security people.
One of the other things that you discussed in your session was the challenge with these surveys that everyone's familiar with in security that either come to your desk or you have to send them out to your vendors.
Right.
Tell me about some of the challenges and problems with this approach.
Okay. The typical approach is to develop a survey, and because of the complexities involved with third-party risk management, a survey is not going to work. There's no silver bullet. There's not a solution that fits all. The key to any third-party risk management program is understanding where your risk is. And the only way to do that is to look at the entire population of the trading partners and others that you're doing business with and stratify that population based on risk, based on a lot of different elements: size, importance to the overall processes that they're participating in, any number of factors. But without stratification, you're going to send a lot of questions to an organization that they can't answer or don't need to answer because they're not applicable. But by stratifying and saying, okay, this is a small organization of 50 people, clearly they're outsourcing a lot of things that we're concerned about, but we still want to understand what they're doing and who their parties are so that we can get an accurate picture of our risk.
And I just want to ask you about this because I heard a practitioner mention this at one of our other conferences who said to save time, because that is in his wheelhouse,
right.
He is responsible for this. To save time, he would ask them, what have you done for other vendors as far as surveys go? Send that to me as is, and I'll analyze where the gaps are that we need from our organizational perspective. Is that a time saver? Do you agree with that idea?
Yeah, I see that as a time saver because at least that way they're not having to answer the same question that may be worded slightly differently or organized a little differently or whatever. But still, in my estimation, the key is stratifying the population and not sending questions that have to do with physical security to an organization that outsources all of that to a rack space, for example, or some third-party co-location facility. So that's an NA. So why even put it in there? So it has to be, like I said, you've got to stratify that population of your vendors and customers and so on to make sure you're asking them pertinent questions that they can answer, and make sure that you're asking those questions in a way that's not binary. Because yes and no, they're going to answer yes because they want your business.
Right. They've got an incentive to say yes, yeah. Right? Okay, last question I have goes back to your first statement, which was the idea that this shouldn't necessarily be in security's wheelhouse, it should be in risk's wheelhouse. How do you start that conversation of your organization if you feel like you're on the security team or you're leading security and this isn't your wheelhouse? How can I approach this?
I think the best way, any organization is made up of lots of groups of people with lots of different roles and responsibilities. And when something comes to your desk that clearly does not belong within your set of skills and experience, you need to raise your hand and say, you know what? I appreciate the fact that I might be able to help with this, but this is clearly not something that I'm equipped for. Is there someone else that's better suited to deal with this? If you're in a small organization, it's tougher to do, but it clearly needs to be kicked back and say, hey, look, this is not a security issue, this is a risk issue. I'm not sure who in our organization should be responsible for managing risk, but it's not me because my main focus is securing whatever within the organization.
Can you imagine yourself saying that? Have you said that? Let me know either by email, media@secureworldexpo.com, or tweet me at the CyberSUS, and that's all one word, the Cyber SUSS, all like in Sam. Well, our next guest is talking about another frustrating part of being in security, especially for leaders, and that is finding talent. But what if you're looking for the rarest of the rare in cyber talent? That discussion is coming up with Matt Clapham, who is Director of Cybersecurity at GE Healthcare. Now, an update from Trend Micro's Zero-Day Initiative, which you may know is the world's largest vendor-agnostic bug bounty program. Now, the ZDI reports it paid out $1.5 million in bug bounties last year, and that many of ZDI's contributors are security professionals who actually moonlight as researchers. Are you interested? Here are the kinds of vulnerabilities the Zero-Day Initiative is looking for. We're covering that in today's Trend Micro Top 3. Number 1, and I'm quoting here, "We are enterprise focused and looking for these qualities: remote code execution, critical, widely deployed, browser flaws, server-based, OS flaws, sandbox escapes, VM escapes, and security product vulnerabilities. We also have an increased interest in the ICS SCADA space. This space is a vast, wide open, untamed terrain for the hungry bug bounter." That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? ZDI is also interested in consumer products like widely used IoT devices and, of course, popular mobile devices. Okay, number 2, you must keep any vulnerability you're planning to submit completely confidential all the way through the embargo period. Don't post any evidence to a public cloud or website such as YouTube or Google Docs if you intend to submit your case to ZDI. It will not accept reports that have already been exposed in this way, regardless of the level of sharing that was enabled on the cloud document. That's an important point. Number 3, know that if you do submit vulnerabilities and they're offered on and paid on, you are making us all safer. A total of 88% of the 2019 advisories were published in conjunction with a fix from the vendor. And before that time, the bug was confidential and only used in Trend Micro's Tipping Point product. So there you go. There's a little insight into the workings of the ZDI. And Trend Micro, by the way, is our premier podcast partner. I will put a link to the submission guidelines and this latest information from the ZDI in the show notes. Now, back to our topic of the episode, frustrations in cybersecurity. Of course, we've already covered in a unique way third-party risk. Another that we hear about, it seems like at every one of our regional SecureWorld conferences, is the talent gap. After all, getting away on that trip you've been dreaming of? Well, that would be a lot easier if you had a fully staffed security team. And what if you take the talent search up a notch, hunting for one of the most rare types of cyber talent? Let's go to SecureWorld Detroit and my discussion with Matt Clapham, who is Director of Cybersecurity at GE Healthcare. He shares some ideas for developing a talent pipeline.
The talent gap in all of cybersecurity is huge. Cyberseek.com estimates that there are 313,000-ish unfulfilled positions in the United States alone across all of that. And that's just in the U.S. If you probably extrapolate that across the entire world, I'm sure it doesn't get any better.
Right.
And the ISC squared estimates that that gap will expand to 350,000 by the year 2022.
So we're going in the wrong direction is what you're saying.
Exactly. We got a big gap and it's not getting any better. And what's worse, in the secure systems engineering space, you're looking for the rarities inside of the rarity. So I like to call them flying purple unicorns. Right? You're trying to find that, not just unicorns,
right,
but the flying ones, and they're purple.
And they're purple,
Yeah.
yes.
So you're looking for these real rare talent. And so if we're ever going to get in front of that, we've got to change our approach.
And what is it that you're thinking and that you're speaking about today at SecureWorld Detroit as a solution, or maybe a starting point to finding a solution?
We've looked at the talent pool out in the industry. It's around, but it's still really hard to find. So we've got to, in order to get ahead of that flood, we can't just depend on existing candidates. We've got to make more people. So we've got to find those people. And I think there's 3 key things we can do to start. And that, well, number 1 is ask them. Find out who's actually interested in getting to know more and getting more involved and maybe career shifting into security. They don't even necessarily have to be in security today. They don't even necessarily have to be very technical today. As long as they have the drive and the interest and the basic knack, we can teach the information, the skills that they need for the other stuff. Second up, we have to take a chance on those people. We have to be willing to help them get better, to help them shift, so that we are bringing more people into the security fold. Because if we don't, then we're never going to get in front of that flood that we're already encountering. So then, finally, in that, we need to help those people get educated in the areas that both they need to for good security basics or good general IT operation basics, but also in the security specifics. So we need to help them build that individualized education program for their particular needs in the cybersecurity space.
And last question for you. When you talk about those things, they sound great. Do you recommend kind of an ad hoc program where you're saying, hey, I think I heard you mention you were interested in security, or do you formalize something? What do you suggest?
It depends on the size of your org. It doesn't even have to be that complex or that formal, even in a large org, but certainly a slightly formalized one helps. But really just going out and something as simple as a survey, even just an online survey if you wanted to, or something as simple as just asking around at a meeting and getting people to raise of hands to see who's interested, can start that whole process, that whole ball rolling.
That sounds great. And one last question, Matt. I'm sure, as Director of Cybersecurity, you have about 1 million things on your to-do list right now, but here you are at SecureWorld, collaborating, leading sessions. Why are you here? Why do you believe in this?
I like to give back to the security community, and I always want to learn more about that. So for me, it's a labor of love in both helping make the community better and learning more for my own personal edification. And I'm also scoping out for opportunities for companies that can help us make products more secure.
Cool. Matt Clapham from GE Healthcare. Thanks so much, Matt.
Well, thank you.
Well, I hope you appreciate Matt's insights, and maybe you can take him up on the idea to uncover those who might want to get into security and would be a good fit. Also, thank you to David Barton for your insights on third-party risk. And really, I appreciate you listening. Whether you are walking the dog right now, or maybe you're sitting outside your kids' practice and just killing a little bit of time, you are a really important part of SecureWorld's mission, which is connecting, informing, and developing leaders in cybersecurity. So thank you for joining us on that mission. And on behalf of our editor, Pete, and the rest of the SecureWorld team, I'm Bruce Sussman, your host of the SecureWorld Sessions, and let's catch up again next Tuesday.